The question I'm getting asked very often is, Ross, can I really upgrade myself to a deep learner? Can I really do it? And the short answer is everyone has the capacity to become a deep learner. Why do you think we want to become why would you want to become a deep learner? What's the purpose? Because as a deep learner, what it's going to do, the practices of deep learning, if you do them every single day, and if you master them, what they'll do, they'll excite your brain. They'll put your brain into an ecstatic desire for something. And when you get that ecstatic desire of something that comes from your feeling, not something that's manufactured through a traditional way, or not something that was manufactured through your life, through the education system, but something that really came through you, that excites the brain neurons. Because once we get the brain neurons excited, the brain now wants to do something, wants to go and act towards its desire. And with every desire, we want to make sure it's ecstatic. And I often get asked, because I'm solving problems and I'm following a process, but I'm solving problems and I'm following a process. But that's not deep learning. Deep learning is when you are solving problems towards an ecstatic, a burning desire that comes through your own feelings. So you generate this ecstatic desire through your own feelings, and you do that by doing the deep learning practices. And when you're doing those deep learning practices to generate and utilize the feelings, and then what happens is we're using our past knowledge and our new knowledge, our new experiences to connect it to something that excites us. And through that, we establish our ecstatic desire. And our ecstatic desire, when you find what you are here for, when you find that ultimate purpose that belongs to you, what happens is with every desire, you're going to find problems. There's always going to be problems. Now stick with me for one moment. So every desire, whatever that is for you, whatever excites the brain, whatever gets the brain excited, has its own problems. And when you find that, then you're going to have this as a deep learner. And then your job is, as a deep learner, is to overcome these problems. This is the journey. This is the adventure. And as you overcome each problem, what happens is, through each problem, there's going to be risks. You're going to make mistakes. But through every problem, you're going to learn something new. You're going to realize something different. You're going to experience something else. And it's through this process, because this desire is so ecstatic, you're going to be forced to basically go through these problems, jump these hoops, and sometimes you might make a mistake here and you might fall over here and get hurt here, but then that burning desire is so much, it's so ecstatic that you come back for more, and you come back for more, and you come back for more. And as you keep coming back for more, as you keep solving those problems, what happens is you're elevating yourself. You're getting into that deep learning brain mode. You're starting to master the deep learning practices. Your brain is switching into a deep learning mode because it's getting used to solving problems to a desire it has ecstatic desire for. And as you move up and as you grow, what happens is this desire, as you keep up, creates something else, it creates more problems. And it creates more problems. And then you have to solve these problems, and you keep moving up, and you keep moving up. And so we keep on living a life, because there is no ecstatic desire without problems. If you look at some of the greats, the people that have changed the world, the people like Nelson Mandela, who had an ecstatic desire for his people to have equal rights. Okay, he had all these problems he had to overcome, and he went for those problems, and despite them trying to stop him, despite them putting him in jail, despite them doing the most horrendous things to Nelson Mandela, he found a way to overcome the problems, because this ecstatic desire was so strong. It was so powerful. And that's the whole purpose. When you're doing these deep learning practices, I always say, because right now we think we know what our purpose is. We think we know what our passions are. We think we know what our desires are. But going from my experience, and before I did the deep learning practices, what I thought were my desires were not really my desires. Because as a surface learner, everything was pretty much superficial. Everything was just getting enough information to reproduce it or to rememorize it, using that to get by, using that information to get by, follow rules, follow a process, and I would follow the rules, and I would see the end of my journey in my 20s. I would see what I'm like in my 50s and 60s and 70s. It was like my life was automated. And the thing is, you think on the weekends I like playing sports, and you think on the weekends you like doing some kind of activity, but maybe that's not it. Maybe that's not your purpose. Maybe that's not your desire. Maybe that's not your hobby. Maybe these rules were given to you because someone else just gave you that information. And I'm not saying it isn't. But as a deep learner, what happens is when you do these practices and you start to action things and you start to experience things and you start connecting your neurons, because remember, there's neurons in your head. You've got 100 billion neurons in your head. And think of neurons like little workers. So think about it, you've got 100 billion neurons in your head doing things for you, doing different things so that you can live the life and so that you can accomplish the goals that you need to accomplish in your life. And what happens is, as you get older, as the desires become less, as the brain gets bored, because what happens is the old traditional model of surface learning created a fear of failure, created a fear of taking risks, created a fear of making mistakes. And eventually what happened, you live a life of fear. You live a life of not making mistakes. You live a life of trying to find something that might excite the brain. And usually that's something like alcohol or drugs or food or gossip or social media and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And then cheap dopamines, and really those things don't take you far except through to some kind of anxiety or some kind of worrying or some kind of depression. That's what they end up doing for you. Deep learning practice is what it takes you to your real desire, to your burning desire. And once you find through the practices, you'll notice you're experiencing something new. Your brain neurons are now starting to get excited because you're giving it a real goal, you're giving it a real desire. It's ecstatic for. I mean, sometimes we do our job and we don't have a burning desire in that job. We're really bored, we're going through the motions. We're only doing it for a salary at the end of the week, and we may be good at it and we're learning for the sake to get by, and we're learning to do enough so we don't lose our jobs, and we're learning just enough so that we can get to the weekend and we can make a repayment at the end of the month and so on. But it's not a burning desire, because on the weekends we don't want to do our work. I mean, I know with myself, Friday was always my best day because I couldn't wait for the weekend. And Sunday night was always my worst because I had to go to work the following day. That's how I felt, because I didn't have a burning desire for it. I didn't have an ecstatic desire for what I was doing at work. And with deep learning and with the practices, that changed. My experiences changed. My brain started to change, my goals started to change, my communication started to change, my learning changed. I started to care about the things that I was learning, but I started to care about the things that were aligned to me. Didn't care about learning about everything, and I didn't care about learning some data and some facts and getting information and reading a bunch. I learned things that were aligned to my feelings that excited me, and through that process I found my burning desire, and through that process I found problems that I needed to solve, and I had to solve these problems. I had to fail, I had to make mistakes. And through that, I start growing and developing, and of course the desires either become more entrenched or they become updated, and then they become more of who you are and develop the person that you were meant to be. I don't want to know where my end journey is. I don't want to know where my destination. I don't want to know how I end up. I hope that at the end of my journey, I am the best version of myself. I hope at the end of my journey, I'm solving problems. I hope at the end of my journey, I've been able to make change, to affect change, to do the stuff that were purely there for me, and that I hope that at the end of my journey, that I've used and given everything that God gave me.